Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Um, I'm just going to give a few minutes for everyone in the waiting room to join. If you were in the room before you were in the waiting room, welcome back. That was a slight technological hiccup on my part. But I'm really happy. I'm really happy to see some of you and to see others of you that are in our space, but maybe off camera. You are welcome to be on camera today or off camera. It's just Kristen and I that are getting recorded. Um, so I suppose many of you I haven't met before. My name is Chelsea Roth. I'm the founder and director of Eat, Breathe, Thrive, and I'm so pleased and honored to be here with Kristen Portland, who is the executive director of ANAD. And we're really thrilled to, I suppose, just celebrate the fact that today's the first day of Eating Disorder Awareness Week. And we're kicking off Eating Disorder Awareness Week with an event on yoga and eating disorder recovery and community, which are, I think, some threads that both of our nonprofit organizations share in common. I'll briefly just say our mission at Eat, Breathe, Thrive is to prevent and help people overcome eating disorders. And we do that primarily through yoga-based programs. So programs that combine yoga, a support group approach, and what we call psychoeducation to both prevent eating disorders among young people in schools and university settings and complement traditional forms of treatment, so to supplement other approaches to recovery, whether those be psychotherapeutic or medical. Just to provide people with skills, I think, to learn about how their bodies work, learn how yoga can help them in the recovery process, and hopefully move toward living a happier and healthier life. I will hand the baton over to Kristen, who's going to say a little bit about ANAD and tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be speaking about today in today's events. But welcome, and we're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chelsea, and to everyone who's just still coming in, welcome as well. We are going to be recording this. We'll be stopping for questions throughout. So if you would like to just ask your question out loud, feel free to use the raise hand feature. We'll pick you and you can talk. You will be recorded just for your question. And you're also available just to drop it in the chat if you would prefer not to do that. So yeah, as Chelsea said, I am Kristen Portland, the executive director of ANAD. We are the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders. We've been around for 45 years now, and similar to Chelsea, we work as a complement to other kinds of eating disorder treatment. While we're not a substitute for treatment, we really are there to help you along the way and be an extra space where you can connect with other people who are going through some similar things. We have support groups. They're our oldest service. We have currently 12 virtual support groups, including ones specifically for LGBTQ folks, the BIPOC community, people in larger bodies, older folks, younger folks. We really believe that there's space for everyone in the eating disorder recovery community. And on top of that, we have a mentorship program. So if you either are recovered and want to connect with someone who's working on it, or need some help in your own recovery, we can pair you with a mentor. And we have our helpline. So if you have questions about eating disorders, recovery, trying to find treatment, those are all ways that ANAD might be able to help. And as Chelsea was talking about earlier, it really is community that I think is kind of a big focus of both Eat, Breathe, Thrive and ANAD, and a big part of why we're here today, because connecting with other people is really, really key to fighting eating disorders, which everyone knows can be so isolating. So Chelsea, what is it about yoga and community that really speak to you and kind of foster the Eat, Breathe, Thrive mission?
That's a great question. And I'm like, we've only got 30 minutes. So let me see if I can be brief in this. I like what you said, Kristen, about, not being a substitute for treatment. I don't think yoga is any panacea in terms of eating disorder. recovery, as in it's not going to fix, it's not like you're going to go to a yoga class and all of a sudden magically feel great about your body and feel like, oh, I don't know why I was always having so many issues. And it's not like yoga is going to magically mean all of the urges that you have to restrict or to purge or to overeat or binge or whatever language you use for your experience is going to go away. But I guess I can say personally, I struggle with a pretty difficult eating disorder as a young person. And I remember coming to yoga for the first time. It was recommended by a therapist, actually. And I didn't know, one, I went back several classes, not because I really loved the practice. I actually thought it was a little bit weird, but because I loved the teacher that was there. I had this teacher that was just so welcoming and so warm. So I think it was actually community, the other topic we're talking about, that drew me into the practice. It was another human being that saw me and connected with me and welcomed me into her kind of yoga community, yoga space. But over time, community got me started in a practice. I always say yoga is very sneaky because I was going and I was thinking, well, we're just doing these crazy poses. Downward facing dog, and I've got my arms out, and ooh, I might be building my arm muscles here. So I had all my body image issues coming into the practice with me. Like, I'm going to do yoga to strengthen my arms, or I'm going to do yoga to flatten my abs. I totally brought that to the practice. And what started to happen slowly over time, so many things. One thing that happened is I stopped, I would say my awareness moved from being really focused on what my body looked like to what I was noticing happening inside of my body, which hadn't happened in a really long time. I'd spent most of my eating disorder learning to ignore my body's signals. So if I felt hungry, I tried to just push it away. If my body needed anything, if I was tired, it was like push through all the way. And what happened in yoga is I went in really focused on what my body would look like. And I came out just noticing little things like my heart starting to beat really fast. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I think I might need to actually take a few deep breaths, or noticing the effect that a few deep breaths had on my experience. Over time, what that turned into is actually being able to sense things like hunger and fullness again, which were incredibly practically useful in recovery, because I got to a point in recovery where I wanted to not have an eating disorder, which was a big step, for a long time. And then once I got there, I was like, okay, I want to not have an eating disorder, but how is that even going to look? How am I going to listen to my body if I don't know what it's saying? So that was a big thing that happened in yoga. I mean, that's a start. To answer your question.
Yeah, I really struggled with all that advice that people regularly get saying, listen to your body. I was one of those, my body needed to be screaming at me before I would pay any attention to it. And I dealt with some restriction and some over exercise, but my form of movement was very different from yoga. So when I started doing yoga, I very much went into it as a like, okay, this is going to be the thing I do to take care of my body, because I kind of knew that, maybe doing too much exercise was going to have a toll. So I really came to yoga with the idea that this is going to be a thing I do that's not my exercise, it's my self-care. And that was, I think, a little bit of a different approach, but it was still an area where I had to really learn to tune in. Even though I was trying, I was really thinking about it. I spent a little bit too much time creeping at the people around me, comparing myself. I really struggled with comparing myself to the other people in the room when I started with yoga, because it's a practice where it can be very, very visually striking. When there's some people doing the headstands and other people are just kind of bent over, I wanted to be the person doing the headstand. And I'm still not that person, but I've learned to feel good in myself. Like you were talking about, kind of tuning into some of those signals, like, wow, this is really hard today when it wasn't last week. Maybe it's because I pushed myself so hard and I do just need to breathe. So I agree that yoga is not the panacea, but it is a good way for the people who, like me, aren't great at listening to their body to start learning to pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Krista. I can relate on so many levels. I also noticed Maura in the chat said, yes, I feel like sometimes I cannot trust my body or my mind. And I think that, really syncs up well with what you're saying. And it was an experience I had as well. Um, yeah, and I was just thinking in reading that, that's something I can relate to. If I can't trust my body, or I'm just going to push. Sometimes I wasn't even aware that I couldn't trust my body. It was just like, oh, well,
Yeah.
my body's telling me I'm tired. Who cares? Or like, I don't like trying to push myself into a headstand or handstand because I wanted to be competitive. So, but I don't even know that I was always aware that was coming from a lack of trust. Sometimes I just bulldozed it so quickly that I wasn't even aware that I wasn't trusting my body. I wasn't aware that there was something to be trusted, or that was even valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those signals saying like, hey, maybe take a break, I initially perceived them as like weakness that I could just push
Mm,
through and be like, I'm just going to try harder and then I don't need to listen to that. When
yeah.
that's really not the case. Everyone needs to rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, just open the chat here. We've got a couple
Oh,
great
that's
comments.
okay. That's all right.
Yeah, Rivka, you're right. Nothing by itself is going to work, especially in eating disorder recovery. Like even when people are working with professionals, it's a team. There's multiple different approaches.
Yeah.
So there's never a single thing that's going to work, but yeah, many
Yeah.
tools, learning to use different tools in different situations. And Rivka, you're right, trusting yourself, like learning to trust yourself is so hard.
Mm. Yeah, I'm also seeing, a question here. What would you suggest for someone who's very sick and weak from nausea, and it is hard to do things? I'm glad this question came up because it's something that has been occurring to me as Krista and I have been speaking. The interesting thing about yoga is that many of us have a perception of what it is, and that perception can be really different depending on who you talk to, but it's often very narrow. So when I say that, I run a yoga nonprofit that helps people with eating disorders, often people kind of look at me confused because they think that yoga is like exercise, right? So it's like moving really quickly from pose to pose, or it's like Pilates, or that's kind of like aerobics. I'm like, well, not quite. I mean, it is. There are poses in yoga, but there's a lot of other things going on. Or sometimes I speak to people and they think yoga is like really gentle relaxation. It's relaxation, but where you're moving. And it can be that as well. So the question that you asked here around what would you suggest? I mean, I think it really is different approaches for different people. There's so many different practices in the yoga tradition. Our curriculum at Eat, Breathe, Thrive, we've got courses they can be 4 weeks or 7 weeks, and every week of the course we actually do a different type of practice depending on what we're working on. So if we're working on building mindful eating and building inner awareness, so our ability to sense what's happening inside of our body, we might use a particular type of yoga that's really inward focused. Or if we're working on, for instance, dealing with depression, we might use a more active style of yoga that's really designed to get the blood flowing and the lymph flowing. So there's so many different practices in this tradition. That said, I try not to be prescriptive or to be, like, okay, well, knowing that you're dealing with nausea, you should do this. But I would say that there's probably, if someone's feeling very weak and nauseous and maybe that could be due to so many different things, especially if they're dealing with an eating disorder, I would suggest a more gentle style of yoga. Restorative yoga is a really wonderful practice, and that's, you're holding poses for 3 or 4 minutes, deeply relaxing, deeply restorative for the nervous system. Yin yoga can be really good for that, also very inward focused. I would not suggest something like Ashtanga or Vinyasa if you're feeling dizzy or nauseous or anything like that. Those are going to be much more vigorous and much more active. They can be useful in some stages of recovery and for some things you're dealing with. But the answer is there's lots in the in the yoga tradition, and be thoughtful about what kinds of yoga you're choosing on what days, at what times of days, and at what stages of recovery. A yoga is not good for everybody or at all stages of recovery by any means.
It looks like someone put their hand up if they wanted to ask
Sure.
a question there.
Sure. So if you put your hand up.
Yeah, I've sent you a request to unmute, Bobby, if you want to accept that.
Yeah, I have a question. What about people? Is there yoga that you can do if you're unable to like stand? Like I'm having surgery on my ankle, so I can't stand like on it. So is there like yoga you can do that doesn't require like the standing and the stretching?
Yeah, Bobby, there is. So I mean, there has to be, right? Because we might have people that are missing limbs, so we don't want everybody to have to do it. So, and actually, Tori has taken the words right out of my mouth. Chair yoga is great for this. So you can do. In fact, the practice we'll do here in a little bit, you can definitely do from a seated position, and I'll give you options for seated or for standing. I would refer you to an organization called Accessible Yoga. They are doing such great work, and they're full of loads and loads of teachers that are doing, exactly what it says on the tin, really working to make the practice accessible. So if you're looking for a teacher or online classes, that's a great place to go. Restorative yoga can be great. Yin yoga can be great if you don't want to stand. But if you're looking for something, again, I think yoga should be used for different purposes, right? So maybe you don't just want to lay down and relax. Maybe you actually want to do some flowing movements. Chair yoga would be something I would recommend if you're looking to like lay down, relax, and restore. Something like restorative yoga or yin yoga might be more helpful. I hope that answers your question.
When I started my yoga practice, I had no idea what all of the different kinds of yoga were. And I went to a yin class. And I remember at the beginning of the class, I was sitting there very much like, what are we doing? What is happening here? We were just getting into these poses and laying there and waiting. And I was just sitting there having such a hard time sitting still and just like being in that moment. Where's the down dog? Why aren't we doing planks? Like what is happening? And I remember being so frustrated early on. But then at the end of that class, when I stood up again and just kind of shook myself out, I was like, wow, that felt really, really good. And that for me was very much a kind of highlighted moment. Like I very clearly remember that, and just the power of slowing down and taking care of myself. Because, I mentioned before, I always approached yoga as a way to kind of subsidize some of the effort I was putting in my other exercise practices. But that was the first moment when I really, really felt it, I think. Well, it looks like we have another hand raised from Maura.
Maura, if you can go ahead and accept my request.
Thank you. Yes, I think for me, a lot of times I can agree with that. I think I feel a lot like I have to earn my food and my rest. So like, I remember doing some gentle yoga before when I used to be healthy enough to do all that vigorous stuff. And I was always like, well, I'm going to do some planks and I'm going to do that and this. And more and more I realized that I need to make a connection with my body. Shouldn't be like something I'm separate for, and it does have its needs. And I'm trying to work really hard on identifying the needs without letting my mind get in the way, because I've been struggling for 40 years and I'm suffering the physical consequences right now. I'm very, very low weight and very, very sick. So I think like it's humbling to know where I was before and to have to go all the way back to the beginning. Do you have any suggestions to try to accept that and not feel so much like I have to earn things?
Yeah. Oh, Maura, I can hear the pain of your voice, and I can relate on so many levels. I think one, I'd say you have a tremendous amount of um, insight and self awareness. I can already hear that, and I hope you, if nothing else, give yourself. It sounds like you can be very difficult and hard on yourself, not difficult on yourself, but hard on yourself. You can really, um, thinking about where you were and where you are now, it sounds like you can beat yourself up a little bit. I think just in hearing you for a few short minutes, I hear a person that has a tremendous amount of insight into their own process. So please give yourself that. Um, I would say, one of the greatest kind of boons that I got in my yoga practice, and it was the thing that, to be honest with you, took the longest to develop, was um, self-compassion. And I know that sounds so fluffy, but there's I think there's an opportunity and an invitation in a yoga practice to, one, connect with yourself really deeply and just be with yourself. Like I've had moments in yoga practice where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one in here. It's just me and me in here right now. And there's some practices in yoga that can really invite us to turn what often we offer so readily to others: warmth, empathy, kindness, compassion, understanding, to ourselves, to get just be with oneself and to go, yes, it's really difficult, and yes, I'm experiencing the physical consequences, and yes, where my body is tied with how my life is unfolded over the years, but also to sit with yourself and go, I'm in this moment right now, I'm choosing something different. I'm choosing to be with myself. Every opportunity, there's an opportunity to have a new beginning. Like, this moment is not 20 years ago, it's not 10 years ago, it's this moment that you have right now. So I would encourage you to really, really look for, practices and teachers and classes that give you an opportunity to be cultivating self-compassion. The truth is, change never comes from like, oh man, I've been so bad in my life. Recovery doesn't come from like a sense of self-punishing. Usually it comes from a deep sense of, I may have done some things that really hurt my body, but that came from tremendous pain and trauma, and I've done the best that I can. And in this moment, I'm choosing something different, even if just for this moment, even if 10 minutes from now, I don't have that. Yeah.
And you absolutely are not alone. Recovery is not a straight line. You're never only going to make progress up. It's going to be progress and then steps back and then more steps forward. And another thing that you might do is consider joining a support group. And it has a lot of them. They are completely free. They're open to the public. You can find out more at anna.org. We have them every weekday right now. You can connect with other people. They might have some advice. They might be in a similar place to you or have been there and have advice on how to move forward. And I really just want to highlight what I heard from you, that you know what you need to do. You're motivated to take those steps, and it's never going to be perfect, but we don't need to work it perfect. We just need to take the next right step, and you know what that is. And every day, every moment is an opportunity for that. So thank you for sharing, Maura. I think I see another hand up there.
Yeah. Rivka.
Yeah, thank you. I was so into the conversation you all just had, I forgot my question. Oh, gosh. That's what happens when you get to be old. Oh, my goodness. I just want to personally thank you for this. I know what I wanted to say. I'm just beginning to understand at my age about eating disorders. And I did join a support group from Anad. I had tried out quite a few of them. And your organization is fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm so impressed and I'm so happy with it. We have a wonderful little core of women who support each other. And I want to mention another kind of yoga, if I may, and I do laughter yoga. And I know it has nothing to do with putting your arms or legs anywhere around your body. It just is a group that's a study that's been studied for 26 years, and it's free. It's online. I mean, it's on Zoom, and it's international, and it's a great way to practice self-love. And our director is a physician, and I think it's the best gift I can give myself every single day. I do it every day. And nothing's a panacea. Nothing holds us for 17 hours. It's healthy anyway. So it's 1 hour at a time, or half an hour at a time, or even 5 minutes. But I was just wondering, hopefully some of these teachers in, let's say, accessible yoga are knowledgeable about osteoporosis. I happen to have pretty severe osteoporosis, and I was a therapist, so I know a little bit about the body, a little bit, but I've been to some classes where there was very little understanding as to what I could or couldn't do. And I know that's my responsibility, but I also think it's a responsibility of a teacher to not ask me to, do a forward bend down my head to the ground when it's going to break my back. So I need to find a teacher who I can trust. And if that's the case, I'll do whatever she tells me to do, as long as I know the knowledge is there. So, a science-based knowledge. So if anybody could recommend someone like that, that's what I'm looking for. Because I think yoga is fantastic, but I don't do it enough because I don't know how to. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up, Rivka. I think that I hate to be the person representing the yoga teachers of the world at this event. I certainly wouldn't want to put that responsibility on myself, but I hate to say it, yoga teacher training is woefully inadequate at preparing teachers to meet the plethora of different illnesses and injuries and bodily experiences and mental health experiences that students bring to a yoga class. So I would say most yoga teachers have no idea how to cater a practice to someone with osteoporosis, and would admit that. I was originally trained as a yoga teacher. I'm now a yoga therapist, a certified yoga therapist. I will say yoga therapy training does a whole lot more in this regard. Yoga therapists tend to be, yoga therapists are certified by a body called the International Association of Yoga Therapy, IAYT. So if you see that someone is a CIAYT, you at least know that their training included a lot on how to cater the yoga practice to people with different types of ailments. That's not to say that all yoga therapists are prepared to work with every population, but they have to do a lot more training. I will say there are some yoga teachers that have gone and done tons of continuing education training and will have a whole lot better preparedness. So, just because someone's a yoga therapist doesn't mean they're going to be great. And just because someone's a yoga teacher doesn't mean they're not going to be great. But you can't rely on their training alone. I would ask them in particular. I would consider shopping for a yoga teacher or a yoga therapist like shopping for a mentor, any other type, a dietitian, a nutritionist, a therapist. And you want to really be certain, the same way that you do for eating disorders. I always have clients, I'm like, if you're going to go find a therapist, make sure that they have done continuing education in eating disorders. Not all therapists are prepared to work with eating disorders very well. So if you're working with if you're looking for a good yoga teacher, ask them, have you done any continuing education training in osteoporosis or osteopenia? Are you familiar with how to adapt the yoga practice to someone dealing with these issues? And usually I think they'll be pretty honest with you. If you sense they're not being honest, that's a good sign to run for the door. Or if they're like, oh, but I don't need to, good sign to run for the door. Yeah, so that's what I'd say about osteoporosis and osteopenia. I do think accessible yoga is a great place to start. There's a Facebook group called Accessible Yoga, and I mean, I have no affiliation with those guys other than the fact that I'm in the group myself and I see the conversations that go on there. But you could just post and say, I'm looking for a great yoga teacher or yoga therapist with experience in osteoporosis or osteopenia. Do you know anyone? And they will have someone. And that's a group really working to make sure that yoga teachers have the knowledge to work with people with different types of conditions, and also just helping there are a bunch of yoga teachers trying to help one another get educated. So that's a great place to go to start. And I wish you the best in that. Yeah. Oh, I see your hand still up. Follow-up question, maybe? Yes, we are doing yoga today. Very shortly, Sarah. I think you're still on mute, Rivka, but if you drop it into the chat, I can try to answer. Or Melanie, are we able to take Rivka off mute for a brief moment?
Yep, I've sent the request.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. There was a woman, maybe other people here might be interested, who I found online. Her name is Donna Farhi, Farhi, and she's supposed to be world renowned. I just found it very interesting that she had a very severe driving accident with a broken pelvis. I mean, pretty severe. And she rehabbed herself basically through her yoga. I mean, she's world renowned. So I find that amazing. She's had, very severe illness, injury. So, okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
Yeah. Should we jump in? I feel like there's some eagerness to do yoga in our group.
I'm ready for some yoga.
Okay. Well, we'll move into our yoga practice. So I guess before we get into that, and it was something I wanted to say in response to Rivka's question as well. I teach what I call a choose your own adventure approach to yoga, which is to say everything is a choice. I really try to emphasize agency. So the idea is that you really should, I think this, Rivka, you should never have to rely, you should be the guide of your own body. You know better than anyone what your body needs in any given moment. And sometimes we're confused about it, but still you have access to all of your own internal signals, your breath, pain, sensations in the body. You're the only one with access to those. So in the practice today, I'm going to invite everyone to let your body be your guide. So I'll give you options. I'll give you lots of options because I don't know any of you, until today. So I want to make sure that you have some different, whether you want to sit in a chair or stand up, but you have got to connect with your body and figure out what works best for you. And if I call something that doesn't work at all, please just throw it out. I certainly won't get offended. And really, we always say the best teacher is the inner teacher. And I know that sounds really hokey, but in this case, kind of is true. So please, everything's a choice, and please tune into your own experience and let that be your guide. Let's shift into a practice space. So I'm going to move myself from my chair to a sitting on the ground space. My invitation to you is just come into, if you want to be able to stand up and sit down, you might want to get out of your chair. If you'd like to do your yoga practice from your chair, you want to come into a seated position. I'll give you options for both, but you do want to make sure that you've got some room to move around, especially on your sides. So I'll give everyone 1 minute. I'm going to turn my camera off just to move space for a minute, and then we'll start here in 1 minute.
Okay. I just moved to the floor, and just a warning to everyone, you may see some animals come to hang out with me during this practice. Here's a cat right now. I think animals bring a lot to yoga, so sorry if he's distracting.
Not distracting at all, and you're not alone. So I've got Busby, the yoga dog, here with me as well. Okay, so I can see some of you on video. You're certainly not required to turn yourself on video by any means, but it does help me to be able to see who I'm teaching. If you turn yourself on video, you will not be recorded. We've spotlighted Kristen and I, so you won't be included in the recording, but it can help me just to cater the practice specifically to you. Oh, nice to see a few more faces. Good to see everyone. Okay, great. Well, hi, Kim. Good to see you. Okay, so I can see if many of us are seated. So whether you're seated in a chair or on the ground, either is okay. My invitation first is just to come into a comfortable position. And maybe to start by bringing your attention to your spine and maybe bringing your spine just as upright as you can. So I'm going to lean back a little bit. And you might bring your attention first to the base of your spine. And then just above that to your low back. And to your upper back. You might just imagine you can kind of stack each vertebrae on top of one another. And then bring your awareness to your neck and the top of your head. And imagine that you could just grow half an inch in this moment. See if you can lift up without lifting off the ground. All right, if your eyes are closed, I invite you just to open your eyes, look your eyes open for a moment. And probably if you're like me, your eyes immediately go to your screen because there's people moving around and we're always drawn to screens. But I actually invite you, go ahead and look around in the rest of your space right now. And you might first take a look to your right and just notice what you see. I like to first just bring my attention to any colors in my space. Greens, whites, blues. You might just bring your attention to the texture of each object in your space. The quality of light in your room. Might notice if you've got windows, the light coming through the window, and areas that maybe you see shadows on the floor or on the wall. You allow your eyes to move around the room now, to the left, to the floor. We call this practice in kind of psychotherapy circles orienting. And one of the wonderful aspects of it is that it brings our attention immediately into the present moment by orienting to what we can see in space. And also do this in your body. So I like first just in a yoga practice to start with my hands. If you like to, you can do this with me. Just bringing your hands together and noticing just what you feel in your hands as you rub them together. Maybe warmth, definitely movement, the softness of your skin. You can take your hands now and maybe place them down on the floor or some surface in front of you. Maybe just press one hand down and then the other and notice the solidity of whatever it is you're touching. Always, it seems really basic, but the fact that I can press into the ground and it doesn't go anywhere, it's kind of amazing. And really just bring your attention to those sensations. So again, orienting, bringing attention into the present moment, noticing what you feel in your hands. There's another practice near orienting called grounding, and this is where we notice what's solid beneath us. Especially if you get, I don't know, any of you ever get anxiety or panic attacks, grounding and orienting are like two things that are so helpful. So just noticing what is solid beneath me. What do I see? What do I hear? What can I feel in this present moment? The last thing I'm going to have you do here, it's the third in this sort of trifecta of tools that I use in my yoga practice. It's called resourcing. So we've got orienting, grounding, and resourcing. Resourcing is calling on the resources that we have to bring more ease into the moment. And one resource that's really helpful in yoga is your breath. So I might have you do this with me now. Just first let all of your breath out and exhale completely. And then take a really deep breath in. Maybe hold it for a moment at the top. And then as you exhale, open your mouth and just sigh out. I already feel a little bit different. Let's do that again. Take a deep breath in. Inhale, inhale, inhale. And sigh it out. One more time. Take a deep breath in. And sigh it out. We can resource with our breath. Another way you can resource, maybe we'll do this just for a moment here. See if you can allow your eyes to close if it feels natural. See if you can bring to mind right now the face of someone that you love deeply. Just love with all of your heart. Like if this person walked into the room right now, you would just cannot help but smile. You're so happy to see that person. See if you can bring that person into mind, and maybe even imagine what it would feel like if just out of nowhere that door opened and they're right there. See, I like naturally smile as soon as I bring this person to mind. I can't help it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so great if they were here. So with your next breath in, really hold that person in your mind, hold that person in your heart. Might even just feel how grateful you are that they are in your life at all. And then let your breath out. That's resourcing. It's just calling on experiences and abilities we have in our body and in our mind to bring more ease and love and joy into our moment. You can do it just with your imagination, just thinking about somebody you love. Might not feel like it. We've been doing yoga for the past 6 minutes. This is it. So now we might do a little bit more of what we typically think of as yoga with the poses and the breathing. And my invitation to you is to continue with that grounding, orienting, and resourcing. So continue noticing what you see around you. Continue noticing your connection to the ground. And especially if you have a moment where body image issues come up, or you just don't feel good, resourcing. So calling on your breath, taking those deep breaths, or maybe just closing your eyes and bringing that person back to mind. Okay, just do a few simple poses to begin. I'm gonna have you bring your hands to your heart. And you can rub your hands together again, so doing that resourcing again, noticing what you feel. And we're just gonna do a really simple movement here. I'll show you first and then we can do it together. On your inhale, you're gonna reach your hands up and out like this. Reach all the way up. And then when you exhale, you can just bring your hands back to your heart. We're going to do a few rounds like that. My invitation to you is see if you can connect each movement with your breath. So almost like you're breathing at the pace that you're moving. So really feel free to slow down those movements. Okay, so let's begin. You can let the breath out. And inhale, inhale, slowly reach your hands up. Reach up, reach up, reach up. And exhale, bring your hands to your heart. Again, like that. Breathe in, take your time. Notice how quickly you're breathing and see if you can slow your movement down to match that. Exhale, hands to heart. And then one more time like that. Inhale, reach up. And exhale, hands to heart. Okay, we're gonna add on a little bit more. Inhale, reach up, just like you did before. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. And then as you exhale, bring your right hand down beside you to the ground or whatever surface you have. It could be the top of a chair. And then reach your left hand over. Just feel that stretch in your side. Great. Ooh, inhale, come back up. I didn't realize how much I needed some yoga today. That stretch felt really good. Good, and then exhale to the other side. Left hand down, right hand overhead. Ooh, great. Inhale, come all the way back up to center. Take your time, breathe in, get as tall as you can. And then exhale, bring your hands back to your heart. Let's do that again, all together. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, right hand down, left hand overhead. Maybe take your gaze to your hand. Notice what you see. Inhale, come back up to center. Again, you can look up at your hands. Exhale, left hand down, right hand overhead. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, hands to heart. One more time like that. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, right hand down, left hand overhead. Inhale, back to center, reach up, get as tall as you can. Exhale, left hand down, right hand overhead. Inhale, center. And exhale, hands to heart. Great. You can bring your hands down to your sides. Maybe roll your shoulders out. Take your head from left to right a few times. Great. And then go ahead and pull yourself back enough that you can extend your legs. I don't know where you are in space. I have to actually sit back a little bit. So you can extend your legs. We're not going to lay down yet, but we will. Feel free to bend your knees here if you need to, but I'm going to have you take your hands by your side and then just shake your legs out a little bit. Bring some movement into the legs. Great. Maybe move them side to side a few times. And we're going to do a pose that seems, and if you're sitting in a chair, you can do this in a chair. So just basically moving your legs up and down several times to bring some movement into the legs. Great. And then we're going to do a pose called staff pose. So if you are sitting on the ground, bring both of your hands just outside your hips. And this pose is so simple and so challenging. Seems like it shouldn't be this hard, but it really is. And staff pose is just what it sounds like. So you're going to bring your toes toward your face if you're sitting on the ground, hands next to your hips, and you're just going to get as tall as you can like a staff. So it's literally just lifting the top of your head up toward the ceiling. You don't have to push into your hands, just get as tall as you can. If you're seated, you're going to do the exact same thing, but with your feet on the ground. And I want you to take 3 deep breaths here. Yep, Gail, it's really deceptively simple. So hands are going to be next to your hips. You don't have to bring them forward. Great. Yep, exactly. A little bit back, tiny bit back. There you go. Exactly. And then everybody here, roll your shoulders back a little bit. Yeah, great. Okay, 2 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more. Deep breath in. And exhale. Whew, so hard. And then go ahead and shake your legs out a little bit. We're going to do something that might feel really good here. I'm going to turn so you can see me. Going to lay down on your back and then just take your knees from side to side a few times. We're going to crack there. And if you're in a chair, you're going to do just side to side in the chair. You can actually do this seated as well if that feels better. Great. Okay. So if you're lying down, you can go ahead and roll onto one side or the other. We're going to all come up to seated. And then we're going to move into a low lunge here. So low lunge, you're going to go ahead and come up onto your knees and take your right foot forward between your hands. And what you can see here is I'm going to place my right foot near my right hand, and then I'm going to bring my knee just over the right ankle. Great. Yeah. Kind of trying to see everybody as much as I can. Great. And many of you have your hands on the ground. If it feels more comfortable, you can also bring your hands up to the top of your leg. And some of you, that might feel really good. Some of you might be like, ooh, that's way too much. If your back knee is uncomfortable, what you can do is turn the yoga mat under or put a blanket under the knees. We've got a little bit of padding. Great. And then get as tall as you can in your spine. So really just lifting through the vertebrae and breathing really deeply here. Okay, if you'd like to here, you can bring your hands up. You can also just stay at any point we were at before. So hands can come up here, breathing really deeply. Great. And then last one here, maybe bring your right hand to your hip and then just reach over with the left. Getting a nice stretch. Good. Okay, everybody inhale, come back up to center. Exhale, bring the hands down. And we're going to come onto all fours. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Melanie says to do this pose in a chair, you can pull one knee up and hug it with your arms. Great. Thank you, Mel. That's why we have co-facilitators. So coming onto all fours, going to do some cat-cow. So inhale, gaze up, and exhale, round. And if you're seated in a chair, you can just be seated and inhale, roll the shoulders back, open the heart, exhale, round the back. Inhale, gaze up, there you go, great. Exhale, round, and again, keep doing that. If you're on all fours, inhale, gaze up, exhale, round. Okay, we've got one more side to do. So if you are on all fours, we're going to do the other side now. So step the left foot forward. Let's see how to show you this best. Left foot is going to come forward between the hands. And then what I'd like you to do is see if you can stack your knee above your ankle. So what I don't want is your knee way forward, or it can be a little bit back, but really not forward. If your knee's too far forward, you can try taking your left foot up a little bit further. Great. And then some of you have already done this. If you'd like, you can come up, rising up onto the leg and lean into that left leg. Really, we're looking for a nice stretch on the front of the right hip. So just up this side. And you might just try breathing into that part of your body, taking some really deep breaths. Sometimes I imagine my breath is like language for my muscles, just saying, it's okay, relax. You don't have to, we don't have to panic. It's just yoga. Great. Okay, if you'd like here, you can take hands up toward the ceiling. Take a really deep breath, get as long as you can. Same thing in the chair, you'd be pulling your knee toward your chest and reaching, hands up. Great, and then say left hand here can come down to your hip, right hand over. If you're in the chair, left hand will just come down to the side of the chair, right hand reaches over. Deep breath in, exhale, inhale, reach all the way back up. Exhale, both hands come down. And then you can take left knee back to meet your right. And again, we'll do those cat-cow poses. So inhale, gazing up toward the ceiling. And then exhale, rounding your back. Laura, I see your message. Thank you for being here today. Oh, really, really sweet message. Great. Okay, a few more of those. Inhale, gaze up. Exhale, round. Okay, go ahead and come just back to all fours. And then I'm going to invite you to come back to a seated position here. Let's see, we've got a couple more minutes. I'm going to give you one more good stretch. So invitation here, this pose is called Janu Shirshasana. So go ahead and extend your right leg out and bend your left knee like this. Yep. And then we're going to inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward over that right leg. You do not need to grab the foot or grab anything. Just allow the hands to rest. Take a big breath here. Breathe into the back of that leg. Exhale. Don't have long, so I'm going to go ahead and bring you back up. And slowly walk yourself back up. Other side, so left leg comes out. Right knee bends, sole of the right foot to your left thigh, like a half butterfly pose here. Great. And then inhale, take a big breath in, reach up. And exhale, fold forward toward your left foot. But again, you don't need to grab onto anything or yank yourself into this pose. Just take some deep breaths. Gail, if you like, you can just bring your hands to the floor so they can relax. Great, yeah, perfect. Good, and then everybody just shake the head from left to right a few times. Beautiful. Okay, go ahead and come all the way back up. And then I'm gonna invite you just to lie down on your mat here for a final rest, the best part of the yoga practice. We'll just take a 1 minute rest here. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you're more than welcome to. And if it feels better to have your eyes open, that's perfectly okay. I'm going to have you just take one breath in with me. I want you to breathe in as much as you can. Get as much air into your lungs as possible. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. Hold it for a moment. And then sigh out, knowing that you are sighing out with every other person in this space right now. We're all taking one big sigh wherever we are in the world. You could just take about a minute here for a final rest. Okay, begin wiggling fingers and toes. Maybe move your wrists and ankles. Turn your head from left to right a few times. Thanks, Maura. Yeah, this is Busby. This is my little yoga therapy dog. You know, another form of resourcing is animals. They're great. They always bring us back to the present moment. Okay, so we have come, Kristen's got her furry friends as well. We've come to the end of, oh wow, this is amazing, Melanie, our event together. I want to thank all of you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to see you, to hear you, even though as I didn't see. I know you're here, and I really want to just thank you so much for taking some time with us this morning. Melanie has dropped in lots of information in our chat about ANAD, their helpline, their email, their website, as well as Eat, Breathe, Thrive's website. I'll briefly say we have at Eat, Breathe, Thrive free yoga for eating disorder recovery courses that happen literally every month. So those are a 4-week course designed specifically to help people that are on the recovery journey. There's a week that's focused on self-compassion. There's a week focused on inner awareness and mindful eating. There's a week focused on tools for trauma recovery. There's a week focused on dealing with anxiety and depression. Very practical, very accessible. And you know, you at least I think you can go into that knowing that it's eating disorder sensitive. So you're not going to get a bunch of, you know, negative body image messages or do yoga for exercise. So if you're interested in that, please do go to our website. It's completely free and you can sign up next month or the month after. Kristen, is there anything you want to throw in there? I know ANAD also offers free support groups as well. Yes. Are you on mute? Melanie, do you want to take this?
All right. Yeah. And if you are looking to expand your recovery community, there's so many ways that ANAD can help you there. Our support groups meet every single week. Again, we have at least one every single weekday. You can call our helpline to talk to someone if you're ever struggling or looking to get connected to additional resources. And if you're someone who feels pretty good in your recovery and want to keep that going, we're always looking for volunteers as well. Our support groups, our mentors are all people who have themselves recovered and are turning around and working with people who are still on that journey. So, and Chelsea, I just want to say thank you again. This was really wonderful. I loved talking with you. I loved your class and your cues throughout. There were moments where I was like, oh, I'm going to stretch further, even here. And you specifically saying like, no, just lean. That's such a helpful thing. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Kristen. I had such a great time speaking with you. I feel like maybe we should make this a more regular thing, not just for Eating Disorder Awareness Week. So maybe we'll chat about doing more events like this. Thank you all so much. It was wonderful. I even if you didn't speak, I've been seeing your faces, and so I felt really connected having you here. I just want to thank you so much. And I hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you.